Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, comrades, hello to the live broadcast. Your favorite 60 Minutes Hot Track program starts with breaking news. In Iran, the president and Ibrahim Raisi have been officially declared dead. A statement was made at the mosque today as a result of the helicopter crash, with 1,000 believers in attendance by Ariza's mother. The Russian president flew 2 more helicopters, but they arrived safely at the destination airport. What has happened to the first plane so far? ISNA released an unknown photo of the crash site. It is also reported that the helicopter was completely burned down after the crash. The agency informed him of the start of the process of identifying the bodies of the victims of the plane crash. There were 9 people on board the crashed helicopter, and the bodies of the victims will be transported to Tabriz. The head of the Red Crescent said the search had been completed. Forecasters say a cloud thermal depression was observed in the area where the helicopter crashed. As they descended to the ground, showers and thunderstorms raged in the clouds in some parts of the show, and search and rescue operations continued all night. They were complicated by heavy fog. It is understood that if Russia dies, with the approval of Supreme Leader Akromia, it will be replaced by a vice president, Mohammad Mapper, 60-year-old Maher, the oldest of 12 vice presidents. According to the Iranian constitution, 1 vice president, Speaker of Parliament. And the President of the Supreme Court is responsible for organizing an early election of a new president. They must pass within 50 days. The Iranian embassy in Moscow has just lowered its flag. Putin expressed condolences to Tehran. The president held an emergency meeting with the Iranian ambassador the day before and ordered the dispatch of equipment to help search and rescue operations. According to the latest figures, 2 planes from the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations flew to Iran to provide aid. Turkey participates in search and rescue operations as Zhukovsky returns. Ankara sent a helicopter to Iran to search for the crashed helicopter, and Azerbaijan, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq immediately announced their readiness to provide any assistance. Cables of condolences were sent from India, Armenia, Venezuela, Belarus, Jordan, Qatar, Oman, and China. The United States indicated that they were closely monitoring the situation. However, Tehran has not received an offer of assistance, not from the United States nor from the European Union. Biden is understood to have interrupted another vacation and returned to the White House to receive the latest news from the New York Times about the crash of the Iranian presidential helicopter. At the same time, he wrote that the crash of Russian President Ibrahim's helicopter came at a delicate time, just days after senior U.S. and Iranian officials held talks to reduce the threat of a broader conflict in the Middle East, and that the death of the Iranian president could lead to unpredictable developments in the region. Raisi is considered the most likely successor to Ayatollah Khamenei and belongs to the conservative part of Iran's elite, focusing on cooperation with China and Russia. We will record the assassination attempt on Slovak Prime Minister Fico and the death of Iranian president within a week. Both are Russian-friendly politicians. Pakistani journalist Shari Al-Khan has linked Raisi's death to an attempt on journalist Fico. He linked it to the resistance of 2 politicians, Western Ukraine and Israel. Western media are cynically waiting for a civil war and coup in Iran. At the same time, Westerners themselves admit that while talent sings, no incident in Iran will change his policy. Iran's spiritual leader made the decision to launch a massive attack on Israel recently, according to the Times. Now to the front. The situation in the Turkish direction could deteriorate further, enemy resources wrote. After occupying Chasovaya Yar in these videos, the critical position is to attack positions B and U with thermobarometric shells, Tios alone, and Solntseok. At the same time, Russian troops continue to break through the defenses of the Ukrainian Armed Forces in the Canal micro area. There are reports that the attack aircraft have fixed themselves in high-rise buildings and are advancing. Soldiers of the army group occupied the north by knocking out the basement and shooting points of the development in the direction of Kharkiv. 2. The northern part of Volchansk and the northern group of the Lancet itself are also crossing the Volchia River from the south, hunting equipment around the clock. In these footage, U and Volchansk were attacked by a Polish armored personnel carrier Wolverine. Right now, the city is being pulled up, and all available forces, including those long reserved by German propagandists or Andreevka, report that the situation of Ukrainian militants in the city is catastrophic and the offensive continues. The settlement of Staritsa was liberated west of Volchansk. Russian troops are advancing. Zelensky told AFP in an interview that the Russian troops' advance in the Kharkiv region is the first step in a new offensive. Recall that according to terrorist Budanov, Russian forces are allegedly preparing a large-scale offensive. This is what the Sumy region looks like. The Ukrainian Dragon's Teeth are designed to build a defense line, and they are just piled up on the side of the road, and similar situations. Sukalev is obviously good everywhere in the Ukrainian region. Lack of a high-level system. Zelensky said that in order to boost morale, Ukraine's air defense forces must be increased by at least 4 times. Biden asked 2 famous patriots in Washington to respond, but Vicky Nuland called Kharkiv a Russian city and immediately called on the United States to allow Ukraine to drink American missiles through Russian territory, that is, to allow the attack on Kharkiv in Ukraine. The law on full mobilization came into effect. Now all men are between 18 and 60 years old, and women are also. Doctors must register for the military, and military commissars and police will check Ukrainians' military cards, and if there is no document, border guards will check Ukrainians' military cards.
Военные билеты украинцев будут военкомы, полиции и пограничники. В случае отсутствия документов из военкомата людей будут доставлять.
People will be forcibly transported from the military registration and recruitment office to the territorial recruitment center, effectively stealing citizenship. In general, it happened before, but now it's absolutely legal. After May 18th, there were no men in different Ukrainian cities, empty streets, markets, restaurants, all Ukrainian boys sitting at home hiding from military commissars who are now looking for fresh meat for Zelensky in 24/7 mode. In these videos, the Cherkassa region meets the military commission of the city council. We agreed to meet with the delegates. In order to commemorate the meeting, he offered to visit them at the workplace and distributed subpoenas to all present. None of the 26 people served and will serve from Lviv, Uzhgorod, and Kiev wrote about how locals flocked to 10 to 20 people just to go to the store, footage from the Odessa bus. According to eyewitnesses, representatives of the military registration and recruitment office sprayed pepper spray on public transport. A man was taken away by force, and relatives of the kidnapped man tried to free them, such as the mother of one of the men. She scolded the military commissar and demanded the return of the son of a cancer patient. Meanwhile, Moshichuk, whose son is not on the front line in Europe, said those who fear mobilization are alarmists, suggesting that such people were shot during World War II. On his side, Dad sang in the streets of Ukraine. Military commissars are looking for new forces to fight Russia. In an interview with the Financial Times, Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas said some NATO countries had long sent troops to train Kiev thugs to deal with the new reality of war. These countries are not responsible for the deaths of their citizens on Ukrainian territory. This is a direct quote. According to her, the loss of foreign instructors will not lead to war with Russia.
По ее же словам, потери иностранных инструкторов не приведут к войне с Россией. То есть не жалко Западу даже собственно.
In other words, Jean-Louis Bourges, a member of the Democratic Movement Party and chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the French National Assembly, called on the French Parliament not to regret the West, even in fact not to regret the missile attack on Russian territory. Paris should follow the example of London and Washington and allow Ukraine to attack the rear of the Russian armed forces. Another madman, British Defense Secretary Grant Shapps, said Germany should hand over to Ukraine.
Министр обороны Великобритании Грант Шапс заявляет, что Германия должна передать Украине ракеты большой дальности.
The Taurus long-range missile will allow them to strike Crimea. In an interview, the scanner pointed out that Britain was the first country to allow its weapons to attack the peninsula. The Taurus cruise missile is said to expand the combat capabilities of the Ukrainian regime and strengthen the country's defense capabilities, although Britain itself has proved to be not ready for an all-out war. The Telegraph quoted Major General James Martin as reporting the matter.
Докладывает об этом Telegraph со ссылкой на слова генерал-майора Джеймса Мартина.
He said the reason was that the British Army had lost the appropriate skills. The smallest training in 300 years, the British went to Poland for the largest stand-up and defense exercise in NATO history. Here, Her Majesty's Army, Her Majesty has learned to cross rivers and attack as part of an assault group according to Ukrainian manuals.
штурмовых групп. В самом разгаре разборки...
In the midst of the showdown between US presidents, Trump called Biden mentally retarded and said John was short. In turn, Ippy Biden called Trump a loser who did not know how to accept defeat with dignity. That is to say, this is a moment when both are right, but Trump still looks more believable. Biden, look, lost in space again, gave the military, greeted the air, and then forgot the name of the co-chairman of his campaign headquarters. It all happened in Atlanta. Joy behaved strangely when he greeted the graduates of the Men's Art College. Look, Biden tried to read his jackal argument before his speech, then dropped it on the floor, fiddled with it for a long time, and took out the black folder.
Потом роняет их на пол, долго возится, достает уже черную папку. Шпаргалки, которые он...
The sleeping ravens he had studied a second earlier were under Black Park. As a result, Biden forgot the name of the college at the end of his list and said he would not go home. Biden's speech at Atlanta College was aimed at winning the support of young black voters. However, polls show that Biden's candidacy for the U.S. presidential election is not only not supported by African American youth, but also by white Americans.
Не поддерживает не только афроамериканская молодежь, но и белое население Америки. Новый опрос Fox Business показывает,
Another business question showed that among voters under the age of 30, Biden's approval rating fell by 14%. Donald Trump is now confidently ahead of Biden in 2 key states, according to the New York Times. The proportion of Republican supporters rose 11 points to 47% in 16 years. Democrats sympathize with only 40% compared with 46-16.
достигла 47%. Демократам же симпатизируют только 40% против 46% в 2016 году.